Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So today I want to talk about pretty girl friendship dynamics and how you can't be friends with someone who wants your life. You can't be friends with someone who wants to take your spot. And I know that people are going to get pissed at me for making this video, but I don't care because this is my channel, so I can talk about what I want. But when it comes to Beyonce's friendship with Kelly, I've noticed that a lot of people will say Beyonce only got to where she is because of colorism and how Kelly is just as talented and she should have been just as famous as Beyonce. But not only do I think that that's not true, I actually think that Kelly Rowland has an inferiority complex in comparison to Beyonce when it comes to career and when it comes to beauty. And I'm saying this because every single time I've ever seen Kelly Rowland pop up on my algorithm, it always has to do with her comparison of herself to Beyonce or her talking about colorism almost every single time. Listen to this audio clip.
Direction.
The elephant in the room for me has always been second best.
Wow.
Okay. Hello, I ain't number two. Okay.
That's actually the first time I've said it out loud, eh?
Your sister dropped a whole new couple of songs, and it's my understanding that Renaissance 2 may or may not be country based. And then there's a rumor going around that Renaissance 3 may be either rock based or a DC reunion.
That is her business to talk about.
We still gotta ask every time we see either you. We never see Brittany. Come on.
No, but just ask them. I'm here talking about Mia Copa.
Okay.
Talking about new music, all the talk this week has been about Beyonce's new album. Have you heard it yet? Have you had an opportunity to give some thoughts on the whole thing?
I sure have. It's great. It's absolutely great.
Really different though, right?
Yes, really different.
Is
But
that
getting back to what I'm here to talk about,
Yeah.
Claritin, I'm very excited to be teaming up with Claritin.
What do you think about your friend Beyonce? She's like your sister. You guys literally grew up together. She's stepping into country.
So proud of her.
I know, but were you surprised? And what do you think about it?
I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
So happy for her.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yes.
So it's clear that Kelly Rowland feels like she has been second best because she felt that way so strongly to the point where she even said it out loud in an interview that was seen by millions of people. So she obviously has very strong feelings about this, and now there are rumors swirling that Kelly Rowland apparently walked off set on the Today Show. I don't necessarily believe that she walked off the set because they asked her about Beyonce, because that wasn't proven. But I do know that Beyonce does have a lot of power, and so my thing is, Kelly could have easily said to these media outlets, she could have said, hey, tell me what questions you're going to ask me ahead of time. I used to work for the media myself. The guests that you're interviewing, they have the power to tell you, hey, you can ask me XYZ questions, and these are the only things I'm going to talk about. I would like to stay on subject about this. You can do that. But I've noticed that Kelly hasn't done that. So she claims to not mind talking about Beyonce. She claims to like talking about Beyonce, but then at the same time, she seems to be triggered when people ask about Beyonce. If somebody was my best friend and I truly love them and I'm truly proud of their success, I would have no problem talking about them. And even when it comes to Beyonce herself, I know that she doesn't do interviews, but let's say Beyonce was being interviewed for something. I don't think that Beyonce would be triggered if somebody asked her about Kelly, or if somebody asked her about Destiny's Child, or asked her about any other artists. So I think that part of the reason why Kelly gets triggered when people ask her about Beyonce is because of that internalized inferiority complex. I think that Kelly herself and also unambiguous monoracial black women have kind of projected this whole narrative that Kelly somehow failed in comparison to Beyonce due to lack of looks and lack of talent. And I don't think that that's true at all. But I think that Kelly has internalized this. And I do think that on a subconscious level, Kelly Rowland could have some jealousy of Beyonce and of Beyonce's career, because I even saw this recent interview with Kelly Rowland where she was talking about that new movie she's in, and she was saying how she is glad that she found a different lane than Beyonce, kind of, I guess, the acting lane. She said she was glad that she found a different lane that is kind of her own lane, and she was saying how she didn't have the same work ethic as Beyonce, and she's glad that she found a different area that kind of works for her. And this kind of plays into what I talk about on this channel. I talk about how it's never safe for you to be friends with somebody who wants to take your spot. I believe that deep down inside, when they were coming up, when they were in Destiny's Child, that Kelly also wanted to be a star. Otherwise, why would you even be in a girl group? Obviously, you go into the industry so you can like become a star and stuff. So I think that deep down inside, Kelly probably did want to be a big pop star, and especially growing up with Beyonce, having the exact same vocal training, doing the exact same rehearsals and stuff like that, going on the same tour buses and all that, and then just seeing Beyonce excel and kind of accumulate more fame than her, I believe that she does have some feelings about that and some feelings of jealousy. But I don't like when people try to only tie it to colorism, because I actually don't think that it's due to colorism. I think that Beyonce's biggest privilege was that she had two parents who were willing to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into her career from the time that she was a teenager. How many people do you know who are willing to sell their house and quit their six-figure jobs and quit their businesses all because their little 11-year-old says that she wants to be a pop star? In my opinion, that was actually Beyonce's biggest privilege. It was having her family's support and having basically investors to financially, kind of cater to what she wanted as a child. So most people don't have that in their childhood. Most people spend their childhoods getting whoopings and, being told to do their homework. But with Beyonce, they believed in her dreams enough, or they wanted to make money off of her enough, to the point where they were willing to invest in her. And so if I were in Matthew Knowles' position, and I don't support or like Matthew Knowles at all, but if I were in his position, I can understand why they kind of push Beyonce to the forefront. Because yes, if I sold my house, if I quit my job, if my spouse quit their job, also we could invest in our teenager, hell yeah, she better make it. Hell yeah, we want her to succeed. So I actually think that that was Beyonce's biggest privilege. And of course, she seems very passionate about music and stuff, and I think that's why she is where she is. Obviously, she practices her singing way more than Kelly. And so this whole narrative where Kelly said that she felt like this overarching theme with her career has been being second best, that's not true. Because in my opinion, Kelly is not even a comparison to Beyonce. I can compare Mariah Carey to Beyonce. I can compare Whitney Houston to Beyonce. There are a few people that might be comparable, but I actually never compared Kelly to Beyonce whatsoever. So Kelly saying that is proof that that's her own internalized feeling, because she was friends with someone, or Kelly Rowland is currently friends with someone who she wanted to take her spot. She wanted to be the Beyonce. She wanted to be in that number one position, and she was not able to achieve that. And so now she gets triggered if people ask her about Beyonce. But my thing is, if you're so triggered and you don't want people to ask you certain questions, why not just tell your team to tell the media outlets, do not ask me any questions about Beyonce, only ask me questions about my projects. You could easily tell them that behind the scenes. But I do think that there's a power dynamic in Kelly's friendship with Beyonce. I do think that Beyonce has the power to end careers behind closed doors. So I actually think that potentially if Kelly were to refuse to talk about Beyonce, or if something happened to where she ever threw shade at Beyonce, I do think that Kelly would face consequences in Hollywood for that. So I think that part of it could be that maybe Kelly is scared of Beyonce as well, and kind of scared of her power, scared of her connections and her money and stuff like that. So I think that could be the case as well. But also, my other question is, if Kelly was in the exact same group as Beyonce, had the exact same, resources and stuff, couldn't Kelly have kind of hooked up with Beyonce and used the same producers or the same, songwriters and stuff? Why couldn't she have done that? So that also points to another issue. It's like, okay, so which one is it, Kelly? Are you friends with Beyonce, or is this just a fake friendship and you just don't want to come off as a hater publicly, or maybe there's a power dynamic going on, and so now, you're getting asked about Beyonce in interviews, and instead of just not doing those interviews, you are feeling triggered about it. So I've just noticed this dynamic, and it also reminds me of the dynamic that we as pretty women face in everyday life, where you are almost like the Beyonce on a very small level, where it's like, you are the pretty girl. Maybe you are the one that's getting the majority of the attention. And then maybe you have a friend who she's also pretty or she also has good qualities about herself. But for whatever reason, she feels triggered by you because she doesn't like that you have more social power than her. Beyonce has way more social power than Kelly Rowland. In fact, I've never even heard anybody mention Kelly Rowland's name outside of the Black community. But I know that Beyonce is very well known all around the world. But my thing with Kelly is nobody is stopping Kelly from making music. Nobody is stopping Kelly from making new albums. Nobody is stopping Kelly from going on tour herself or, writing some more songs or performing and doing more stuff or whatever. So for her to say she feels like her career was second best a while ago, and then for her to recently on her tour that she was doing. She was kind of doing like this press tour for that new movie. So for her to recently like start getting triggered when people were asking her about Beyonce, I just kind of feel like that reaction isn't really necessary because like I said, if you truly are friends with someone and if you are truly not jealous of them, then you would have no problem complimenting them. You'd have no problem mentioning how great they're doing or, just kind of segueing it back to whatever it is you're talking about. And I also feel like if you really think that people asking you about Beyonce is going to distract from your accomplishments, then that means you probably didn't accomplish much, at least in your own eyes. Because the way that I see it is if you truly feel confident in your accomplishments, then you would not feel threatened by people talking about another artist's accomplishments. People ask Hollywood people about other celebrities all the time. They do it to be funny. They do it to be relatable to the person. Or if you are known for being associated with that person, and if that person is your best friend, like you claim, then you should have no problem talking about your best friend because it's not like these people are asking her question after question after question every single time about Beyonce. No, it's literally they might ask one or two questions about it like, oh yeah, we've seen your friend, she's on tour right now or whatever. And then Kelly could easily just reply and say, oh yeah, she is on tour. She's doing great. She's also going to be at the premiere of my new movie, and I'm so excited for her to be there. But yeah, this movie, I had to put a lot of hard work into it. Like, she could easily just go back into whatever it was she was talking about. But I feel like because Kelly seems to still carry this victim mindset, this whole my skin tone or my color or whatever held me back from being as successful as Beyonce, I do not feel like there is anything in the looks department that is holding back Kelly Rowland. To say that Kelly Rowland's physical appearance is somehow holding her back, in my opinion, that's false because she does not look bad at all. There's nothing, I don't see any flaws when I look at Kelly, and I don't think that she didn't become the next Beyonce because of her skin tone. I really think that part of this goes back to the Black community. We know that a lot of unambiguous monoracial Black people, they live vicariously through light-skinned Black people or mixed-race Black people like Beyonce. So I do think that a lot of Black women, for example, they are more likely to live vicariously through someone with Beyonce's phenotype versus Kelly's. But that is a discussion that Kelly should be having with her audience. She should be having that discussion with Black women, or that should be a different discussion as opposed to, well, don't ask me anything about Beyonce. Or saying that you feel like you are second best in your career. Kelly, nobody in those interview spaces even called you second best. Nobody said that you were second best in comparison to Beyonce. You said that about yourself. You brought that up out of nowhere about yourself. You're the one who is drawing attention to it when you say, oh, well, back to what I actually came here for. Like, when that's your response, when people ask you about Beyonce, you are actually drawing more attention to the fact that you don't want to be asked about Beyonce. So if you just want to have the spotlight on yourself and remove it off of someone else, that's fine, but that's not the way to do it. Because if you are getting visibly upset, or if you are like making little snide remarks to the point where people are starting rumors that you're walking off sets and stuff because of being asked about Beyonce, that does make you appear to be jealous. That does make you appear to be like more of a hater, or feeling like you wanted to be in Beyonce's spot. Because even in that recent interview where she said she's glad that she found her own lane outside of what Beyonce is doing, because we all know Beyonce is a singer and Kelly Rowland seems to be going into acting. So, but that tells me, that kind of implies that she's glad that she's in a different lane because now she does not have to compete with Beyonce. She feels like there's less competition for her in acting versus competing against Beyonce in singing. So all it's doing is kind of adding more fuel to the fire. And this is what I mean when I talk about how in friendship dynamics, oftentimes little comments like that are what gives the person away. And this whole scenario with Beyonce and Kelly and people claiming that they're not actually friends and that they just do this for the public, like trying to show, according to everybody else, like, oh, yay, Black women, like solidarity or whatever. This is what fuels that fire. And I've noticed that it's the same exact dynamic for women who look like Beyonce. Maybe you are not famous, but because of your phenotype, you have friends around you who they act like they support you, but then if somebody compliments you and not them, then they get mad. That's kind of what that reminded me of with Kelly. It's almost as if she was mad that Beyonce was getting a compliment as opposed to her receiving the compliments the entire time. And for the people who are saying, oh, well, those interviews are the only opportunity that Kelly has to promote her projects. No, they're not. She can easily promote her projects in thousands of other ways. She can create graphics and post them on social media. She can get her team to do it. She can get whoever's running her fan club and her fan pages to do that. They have Netflix that is supporting that new movie that's coming out. They are doing that. She can go on Instagram Live or go on her YouTube page or whatever other social media outlets she has to talk about those things. So no, these interviews that she's doing are not the only chance that she has to promote her projects, and her having that mindset is a part of why Beyonce is higher up than her in Hollywood anyway. Beyonce doesn't do not one interview, or she hasn't done interviews in like probably over a decade at this point, but Beyonce, she can still promote her projects. So this whole narrative that, oh, Kelly, this is her only chance that she gets to promote herself and it gets ruined because people ask her about Beyonce. Well, if she really feels like Beyonce is hindering her or like people asking her questions about Beyonce is that big of a deal, well, then stop being seen by Beyonce. Stop clout chasing off of Beyonce, because that's the thing that I feel makes people want to ask Kelly questions about Beyonce in the first place. Because when I think of Kelly Rowland, I think of Beyonce's best friend. You know why? Because every time I see Kelly, she brings up Beyonce. She brings up Destiny's Child. She is the one who brought up feeling like she is second best. Nobody else in that whole interview room said, hey, Kelly, you're second best, or do you feel like you're lower than Beyonce, or that Beyonce is better than you? Nobody else is bringing that up. That's Kelly, who is the main person that keeps on bringing up that narrative. And also, if Beyonce is like family to Kelly, I view their questions that they're asking about Beyonce as just small talk. It's the same as asking, how's your family? How's your sister Beyonce? How's your cousin Beyonce? How is your BFF? How have you guys been doing? Oh, it's so awesome, like what you are doing. I feel like people just see Kelly as being in the same circle as Beyonce. I don't think that they're saying it like, oh, we've got Kelly Rowland coming on. Oh, let us just automatically ask her all questions about Beyonce. No, because usually when Kelly Rowland is on interviews, they might ask maybe 1 to 2 questions maximum, and they're just innocent questions. It's not like, hey, can you give us a really good detail on what Beyonce is doing right now? No. So my thing is, if I have a friend, like let's say I'm very successful and somebody asks my friend about me, if my friend gets annoyed that somebody is asking them about me or that somebody is asking them about my accomplishments, that would make me feel like, oh, maybe you are jealous then. Because friends celebrate each other's accomplishments. They don't get mad when somebody brings up their accomplishments. And like I said, the way media works is if you have specific things that you want to talk about and things you don't want to talk about, you can easily discuss that with the media outlet off stage. You can discuss that with them backstage, or, you know, before you even come on to the show, you can have them sign some sort of contract or something saying, these are the questions that we are going to ask you, and that's it. Beyonce is not her competitor. Beyonce is supposed to be her friend and her sister and like her BFF. So that's why people are asking Kelly about Beyonce. It's because they think that Kelly and Beyonce are very close knit, but with the way Kelly is responding, it's making it seem like maybe they're not. So the fact that Kelly has randomly brought up Beyonce so many times during interviews over the years, I'm assuming it's because she was probably trying to clout chase, or even if she had pure intentions by bringing up Beyonce randomly every time she gets interviewed, this is what people think that Kelly likes talking about. Like usually when journalists are doing their research on a person, they will look up their past interviews and what that person seems to enjoy talking about. So Kelly is the one that kicked herself in the foot by constantly bringing up Beyonce at random times in her previous interviews, or constantly bringing up how she felt like she was second best in the past and all that. So that was Kelly bringing that up. Nobody else brought that up but her. Kelly was the one who was bringing up colorism, or wants to talk about that and wants to talk about her comparisons to Beyonce. So she is the one that started this, and she is the one that fuels this. And honestly, the way that I see it is, if you want respect in the industry, or you want a certain level of social power, you have to work for that shit. You have to privilege stack your way to that shit. So yes, Beyonce may have been born with more privileges, but she also knew how to strategically set herself up in certain positions to where she was doing better off in life. I mean, even if you look at Kelly's relationship history, she's in a hypogamous marriage. I think she's still married to that one guy. I think that she has kids and stuff. And Beyonce's business moves have always been different than Kelly's. I've never seen or heard Beyonce talk about feeling inferior to anybody else. I've never seen or heard Beyonce complain about thinking that she's second best in comparison to whether it's Whitney Houston or other people who came before her or people who came up at the same time as her. So if Kelly wants to have the same level of respect or the same level as Clout, or the same level of clout as Beyonce, she has to work for that. I mean, Beyonce, maybe she is a bitch, or maybe she's mean or something behind the scenes. I'm not saying that she's not. I'm not saying that she can't be destroying people's careers, because I do think that she has done that in the past. But Beyonce also knows how to show up when it comes to her own work ethic. Even Kelly has admitted she doesn't feel like her work ethic is as good as Beyonce's. That's something that I would never say out loud. I would never go on a public platform and say, oh, my YouTube channel is not as good as so-and-so other person's YouTube channel. No, you know what I would do? I would think about that in my mind and say, okay, I'm not as good as this other person. So now I want to work on myself to make sure that I am up to par, or to make sure that I am doing my absolute best, or to make sure that I can kind of stack myself up to get to the level that I want to be on. Because it's not a bad thing if you want to be on the same level as Beyonce. It's not a bad thing if you want to make music and you want to go on tour and do all that stuff. But you can't just talk about it, Kelly. You have to be about it. So you have to actually go and make the music. And I'm not saying she hasn't made music. I don't know. I haven't seen any music from her, but it's if you want to make the music, you can make the music. No one's stopping you. If you want to go on tour, you can go on tour. Nobody is stopping you. No one is stopping you from being the person that you want to be. And if they are stopping you from being that person, well, then speak up. Stand 10 toes down, stand on business, and say, hey, Beyonce is bullying me behind the scenes, or we're not as buddy-buddy as everybody thinks. Just stand on business like Ciara did. Back in the day when Ciara felt like Rihanna was bullying her. She stood on business. That's a part of what gives people longevity in the industry, is not being afraid to call things out if they feel like there's something going on behind the scenes. But because Kelly hasn't done that, I can only assume that she's coming off as a bit jealous, she's coming off as a bit insecure, she's coming off as having an inferiority complex. And of course, it's going to be the light-skinned person's fault. Of course, she only got to where she is because of colorism, and Kelly somehow failed. And that's another thing. To call Kelly a failure, that's also disingenuous. I don't think colorism has held Kelly back, because she didn't fail. She's very successful. She is probably one of the highest paid people in Hollywood. She's got a career, she looks pretty, she has aged well. So how is she a failure? Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.